Hey, what's going on, guys? So I've had a lot of requests to do a crash course on Astro, and I've been getting into it lately, and I have to say that I'm really impressed. I think that the simplicity, the flexibility, the performance is game changing when it comes to generating static websites. So in this crash course, we're going to get set up. We're going to build a website using Astro, but I just want to talk a little bit about what it is first. And you can go to astro.build if you want to read more about it. So Astro works a lot like a static site generator or an SSG, which is a tool that's used to generate full static HTML websites. Now, there's a few reasons to do this, including performance and SEO, over something like a single page application built with React or Vue, etc. Now, there are some great static site generators out there, but many of them are kind of difficult, especially when we're dealing with beginners. And in many cases, they're bound to existing front-end frameworks, such as Gatsby with React or Gridsome with Vue.js. With Astro, you can use Astro Components, which are incredibly simple, or you can use an existing framework like React, Vue, or Svelte. Astro actually has integrations with these frameworks as well as others. So, I mean, you could create a site that uses some React components, some Vue components, some Svelte. I don't know why you would do that. I wouldn't recommend it, but it is possible. So basically, you structure your website with UI components, and the end result is going to be a fast, static HTML website with very little, if any, JavaScript. Now, there will be some times where you do need some front-end JavaScript to be loaded, things like dynamic sliders and carousels, etc. In this case, Astro only loads that one component, and the rest of the site is just static HTML. And this is called the island architecture. So you can think of the water as your HTML and then your JavaScript as isolated components or islands. And even something like Next.js, you can't have that level of per component optimization without loading the entire page with JavaScript, which is what Astro is trying to get away from. So we're slowly but surely moving away from the JavaScript heavy websites, which is funny because we're almost going back to the early days of the web where we had static HTML and CSS. However, now we have a lot more tools to build powerful and more modern interfaces. And I think structuring your website with UI components and encapsulating everything is much more scalable and maintainable than the old way of, throwing everything in multiple HTML files, copying the head, body tags, navigation onto every page, having separate JavaScript files and style sheets. Astro is just a really elegant solution to give you that fast, static HTML website. So what I want to do now is show you the project that we're going to create. So we're going to create this website, which is very similar looking to the Astro website. And right now, this is just kind of the old school separate HTML files, separate style sheet, no components or anything like that. Everything's just lumped into one file, which this is very fast. It's very performant, but it's not scalable. If you want to add a blog post, you have to create a whole new HTML file. You have to copy the head and body tags, the navigation, all that stuff. With Astro, we can build this out in a much more modern way with UI components, and you can either use Astro components like we're going to, or you could use React or Vue or Svelte components. I'm going to show you how you can use those if you do want to. All right, so basically we're going to convert this into an Astro website. Now, in the description, I'll have a link to the repo that has the final Astro project, but you'll also see this folder, Astro Website Theme, which will have all these HTML files. You can also find the images here. All right, so we will be doing a little bit of copying and pasting from these files just to get some of the content. And when I'm working in the theme files, I'm going to be using Sublime Text. So you can see I have them all open here with all the HTML and so on. Okay, so before we do any of that, though, let's get started. And actually, let me show you the website real quick. So we have a home page with a header at the top. We have this hero area or showcase. I like to call it a showcase. This will be a reusable component. Then we have these cards here. We'll make these into reusable components with props. And then down here, I have this little tab, this dynamic tab component. So that will have some JavaScript that we'll add. And then a footer. Then we have our simple about page with some text. We have another card here, some images. And then we have our blog, which has the showcase component, and then the excerpts wrapped in cards. And if we click read more, it takes us to the blog page. Now, this is going to be a functioning blog. We're going to use Markdown. So if you want to create a new post, you're just going to create a new Markdown file in the post folder, and it will automatically get added here. We'll be able to fetch all of our Markdown files using something called MDX. Now, you have different options, of course. You could use a headless CMS like Strappy or Sanity.io, or you could reach out to an API, and I'm going to show you how to do that as well. I'm going to show you how we can fetch some posts from a site called JSON Placeholder. All right, so I will show you some stuff that ultimately isn't on this project. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. And if you go to the home page of the website we're creating here, you can see for npm, we're just going to run this command, pnpm yarn. So I'm going to go ahead and use npm. Let's open up a terminal, and we'll say npm create and Astro, and we're going to use the latest version. All right, so this is going to ask us a few questions. Where do we want to create our project? So what do we want to name the folder? I'm just going to call it Astro-website. Now, if you want it in the current folder you're in, just put a period. But I'm going to call it Astro website. And then you have some options for templates. You can have a blog template, portfolio, documentation site, empty project. I'm going to choose this right here, just the basics, which is recommended. And then would we like to install dependencies? So basically run npm install. Let's say yes. And that's going to go ahead and basically just install Astro and then any of its dependencies. All right, so now it's asking if we want to initialize a Git repository. I'm going to say yes to that. At the end, we will deploy to Netlify, and we do need a Git repository for that. So we can set up TypeScript if we want. We have the option of relaxed, strict, strictest, and then I prefer not to use TypeScript. I'm just going to go ahead and go with relaxed. All right, and that should do it. So now we can clear that up, and we're going to go ahead and CD into Astro website, and then from here I'm just going to open up my text editor, which is VS Code. Okay, so you can see we have all the files on the side here. So I'm just going to kind of go over these real quick. If we look at package.json, all we have is a dev dependency is Astro, and then we have some scripts. We have dev, so we can run npm run dev. That will start up the dev server. I'll do that in a second. Start will do the same thing. If we want to build out our project, basically build our static HTML files, then we run npm run build. Okay, and then if we want to preview our build, because what this will do is it'll create a dist folder, just like it would with React or anything else. But then we can run preview to actually run the build files. All right, so that's the package.json, pretty simple. Then we just have we have an Astro config file here. If you want to use another framework like React or Vue or something, you can add it here. But there's also a shortcut, basically a single command that we can run that will add it for us and install the dependencies, and I'll get to that. And then we have the source folder, which is where pretty much everything we do is going to go. We have our pages. So pages are just components, and again, they can be Astro components, they can be from other, React or Vue components. And when you create a file in here in the pages folder, it automatically sets up that route. The index is going to be your home page. All right, so if you create, let's say, an about.astro, and then you go to your browser and go to localhost or whatever the domain is /about, then that page is going to show up. Now, you don't want to have like your HTML and head and body tags. You don't want to have to repeat that in all your pages, so that's where layouts come in. So you can basically create a layout, and you can add, whatever you want, your head tags, all that stuff. in the layout, and then you can use it within the page. And I'm going to just clear this out, and we're going to start fresh, and I'll show you exactly how it works. But just to give you a summary, we have pages, layouts, and then components. Of course, you can embed those into your pages, things like cards or whatever they might be. All right, so let's go ahead. Oh, and public is just for any static assets you may have. So let's go ahead and run the server, the dev server. So I'm going to say npm run dev, which runs Astro dev, and that should open up on localhost 3000, and you're going to see just a demo page like this. Okay, but what I would like to do is basically just clear everything out and start from scratch so you know exactly what's going on, because I don't like to just have this code here and explain it all and this and that. I just want to start fresh so that everything is clear. So first off, in the components, let's go ahead and delete the card component. Let's go ahead and delete the layout, because the only thing that's really needed here is the page. So here, yeah, let's just clear this whole thing out, and let's just put an H1 in here and say hello world. So we'll save that, and now we can start to just learn from scratch about these Astro components, which I think are great. They're very simple and powerful. So basically we have our output here, which is it's actually a superset of HTML. So we're not working with like JSX or anything like that. It is dynamic. So if I were to go into this H1, and let's go ahead and add some curly braces here, I can put a JavaScript expression in here. So for instance, let's say 1 + 1. If I save that, that's going to evaluate, that's going to output 2. All right, now if you want to add some JavaScript, it's very, very simple. We basically use the kind of like the Markdown front matter syntax. So we just do a triple hyphen, and then up here we can have our JavaScript. So let's say const name, we'll create a variable, and we'll just call this Astro. And then we'll come down here and let's replace that with name, and we'll just replace world. If I save that, now we get hello Astro. Now we can also add our styling in here as well. So we can say style, and let's say for H1 we want to make the color red. If I save that, and this is scoped styling by default. So anything you put in here within a specific component is only going to pertain to that component. Or in this case, I should say our page, but the page is a component. Later on, when we create a component in this folder, it's going to be formatted the same way, and we have the same capabilities. Now, we can also have dynamic attributes. So let's say we have, let's go ahead and create a class down here. We'll just call it purple, and we'll give it a color purple. And then up here, let's say we have a variable, and we'll call this, I don't know, we'll call it style, and we'll set that to purple, which is the name of that class. And then we can come down here and let's say class equals. Now if you want to add a dynamic attribute, it's just like React, if any of you guys have used React before. So we basically just set it to curly braces, and then we can put that variable in there. If I save that, now that's going to turn purple. Okay, and obviously you can have dynamic attributes or dynamic values to any attribute. It could be an image source tag or whatever it may be, an href. So next thing I want to show you are lists. Just like with JSX, we can create lists. For instance, let's create a variable up here, and we'll call this users, and let's set that to some names. And I'm using GitHub Copilot. I might shut it off if it starts to get annoying. But what we can do is go down here, and let's say we want to do a UL, and then Copilot is going to put this in for me automatically. But basically, it's the same thing that we would do with React. We take the array, we call .map. We're saying for each user, I want to output a list item with the user inside. So let's go ahead and save that. And now you can see the usernames printed in the browser. Okay, now notice that we don't actually have to have a wrapper around all of these elements. So we could, and then we can use a fragment. So you might want to do something like this, just to kind of make it a little neater. I don't know why auto format's not working for me, but yeah, so we could do something like that. Now, as far as like conditionals, we can do that as well. So let's go up here, let's say const, we'll say visible, and we'll set that to true. And then let's say we have something down here that we only want to show if it's visible. So you can see here, we can use the double ampersand. We can say if visible is true, then show this. So if I save that, it's going to show I am visible. If I change that to false, then it's not going to show it. Now, there might be cases where you want to show something else if this value is not true. So in that case, we could use a ternary. So we could say visible, then show I am visible, else show I am not visible. So now if I put this to false and I save that, it's going to show this I am not visible because of our ternary here. Now let's say we want to fetch some data from a back end. So I'll come up here and let's go right above users and we'll say const response, and let's set that to, we'll make a fetch request. Actually, let's use await. Now we can just do this. We can just use an await because there actually is an async that's wrapped around this. So we don't even have to do a sync await. We don't have to create a function. We can simply use await, which is really cool. So there's a top level of sync. And let's get this from, we'll do HTTPS, and I'm going to use JSON placeholder.com. I'm sorry, JSON placeholder.typecode.com/users, which will fetch a whole bunch of users. We could even put a limit on that. Let's say underscore limit equals 10. Okay, and then right here we have users. Let's get rid of this static array and let's await on the response and get the JSON. Okay, and I'll save that. And of course, these are objects, so we're going to want to just come down here where it says user, and we'll do user.name. Okay, and it's as simple as that to just fetch some data and display it on the page. All right, so what I want to do now is create a layout, because if we were to look at the source code here, you can see we do have a doc type, and then there's some other stuff. There's some script tags that have to do with the dev server. It actually uses Vite under the hood. But then there's no head tag, there's no body tag, no HTML tag. So we need to have that stuff, obviously. And you could put it in every page, but that kind of defeats the purpose of using Astro or using something like this, because you don't want to have to keep repeating yourself. So what we can do is create a layout. So we already have a layouts folder, so I'll create a new file called layout.astro. And again, this is just this is an Astro component, and we use it the same way as we do pages and components. Now, for some reason, the exclamation isn't working for Emmett to set up this HTML boilerplate. But what I'm going to do is bring over Sublime Text, where I have the theme, just all the the separate HTML files, and I'm just going to open up the index.html, and I'll just go ahead and grab from the doc type down to the body tag right here. So, and again, you can get this in the GitHub repo. It's going to be the folder called Astro Website Theme. That'll just be the regular HTML files. All right, so in the layout, I'm going to paste that in. And then, of course, we want to have a closing body tag and a closing HTML tag. Now, to actually get our page in here, what we do is we use something called a slot. Okay, so if you use Vue.js, this might be familiar, but we can just put slot here, and that's basically where we want the content to output. So let's go ahead and save this. Actually, you know what? Let's get rid of this link to the style sheet, because we're not doing things like that. I do have the links to the font we're going to use. We're going to use the Roboto font, so we'll leave that in there. But let's save that. We don't have to export anything from here. We do have to import it to whatever page we want to use it on. So let's come to our index page, and let's say import layout from. We want to go up one level into layouts, and then layout.astro. Now you do need the .astro, or you're going to get an error. That's something that I keep forgetting. But let's bring that in, and then all we have to do is wrap our content with it. So where we have this empty fragment, we'll simply put in layout and we'll save it. And now you can see in the title, it says Astro Crash Course because this layout is now wrapping our content, which is being output in this slot. Okay, now I'm going to clean this up because none of this is stuff we need. It was just to kind of show you, how to do this stuff. So let's clear out, I'll just delete the style tags for now. And in here, for now, we'll just go back to having an H1. Okay, now with our components, and remember, the layout, the page, the component, these are all Astro components, and you can pass props into these. So our layout, as you can see, has the title of Astro Crash Course, but you might want different titles for different pages, of course, for SEO reasons. So what we can do is we can pass in a prop here. So I'll say title, and let's just set that to whatever. I'll just say hello. Now, obviously, that's not going to do anything because we just passed the prop in. We haven't handled it. Now, where I want to output that is going to be in the title. So what we could do is say astro.props and then .title or whatever the prop you want to access. And if I save that, now it says hello. So this is not really recommended. What we should do is come up here and let's add in our triple hyphen, and then we can go ahead and we can destructure, let's say title, and we want to destructure that from astro.props. If I save that, now actually we want to replace this with just title, obviously. Okay, and that works. Now what we also should do, if you remember when we set this up, we said that we wanted to use TypeScript. I think it was like relaxed or something like that. So we can create an interface for this, and this is kind of like prop types in React. So we can say export interface, and let's say props, and then whatever the props we want to have. So for instance, title, and set that to a string. All right, now to use this, we can come down here and just say Astro props as props. Now, if you want to assign a default prop to title, we can do that simply by adding an equal sign here, and then whatever we want to set it to, let's say Astro Crash Course. Okay, so now if I save that, it's still going to say hello because we explicitly passed in hello, but if I were to get rid of this and save, now we get the default. Now the reason we have this red line under this is because of our interface, because we're saying it has to have a title, it's a string. But if you want it to be optional, you can simply put a question mark here, save that, and now if we come back over here, we don't have that red line. So now anytime you use the layout and you don't pass in a title explicitly, it's going to use this Astro Crash Course. And it's the same for not just layouts, but any components that you use. So now that you know about components, about props, I want to start to build our website. Now, if I go to the theme, right now I just have all the CSS in this one global style sheet, which, I mean, is fine, but the modern way to build websites and interfaces is to have everything encapsulated in components. So that's what we want to do. Now, of course, we do have some global styling. So there's a few ways we could handle that. We could put it like in the layout. So in layout, we could have style down here, but I'm actually going to use a separate CSS file for that, for global stuff. So what we'll do is in source, we're going to create a new folder, and we're going to call that styles. All right, and then for images, I'm also going to create in source a new folder, and we'll call that images. And then we might as well bring the images over. So let me grab those. And again, I know I've said it a bunch of times, but you can get this Astro website theme in the repo in the description. So we have a few images here. Let's just grab these and bring them over to images. All right, and then let's go to styles, and I'm going to create a file in here called global.css. And you can also use Sass if you want, just right out of the box. Now, as far as what I want to put in here, I don't even need this import because I had the link I had the font link in the HTML. But here I have a couple variables. Let's see, what do I want to include in this? Yeah, let's grab from the top. So we have our color variables. Then we have just our reset. We have the body, and then just some basic styles for links and paragraphs and all that. So we want those, and then also the container. Anything you're going to want to use in multiple components, like container, button, and then I also want this logo small as well. Okay, header and all that stuff, those are going to be separate components. So let's just grab that, and let's put that in our global CSS. Okay, and then I may have some media queries down here. Let's see. So, yeah, let's just grab these two media queries, and we're going to paste those in. But all we need, we do want the logos small and logos, and then we don't need features because that's going to be its own. Component. And then H1 and H2, we do want that. Footer we don't need. That's going to be its own component. Okay, so that's all the global styling. So we'll go ahead and save it, and it's not just going to work. So what we need to do is we're going to import it into the layout that we want to use it in. So let's go, and of course you can have multiple layouts, but we're going to go into layout.astro, and let's go above this interface, and let's say import, and we just want to import .. So we want to go up one level into styles, and then we want our style CSS, and I'm sorry, global CSS, or whatever you want to call it. And there we go, and you can see that that style is being applied. Okay, so now I think it's time to create our first component, which is going to be the header. Actually, let me open up the theme so we can see it as we move along. So yeah, we have the header, which has a logo and then just some simple navigation. So we'll get started with that. So that's going to be in components. And let's create a new component and call it header.astro. Now, after this, I'm going to show you how you can use like React or Vue or any other supported framework for your components as well. But personally, if I'm creating just a website that has some basic functionality, then I'm going to be using Astro Components because of, as you could see, how just extremely simple. You know, no functions with return values and no hooks or anything like that, which that stuff is great when you need it. It's great for more advanced functionality, but for basic stuff, for static websites, I think Astro Components are the way to go. But let's go ahead and go to the theme because we're going to need the output or the HTML. And we're copying a bunch of this HTML, but we're going to switch it up to be dynamic and take in props and stuff like that. But to start with, let's just grab this header tag. So we're going to take that and let's go ahead and just paste that in. So no changing to class name or anything like that. And I'm not trying to bash React or any other framework. I'm just trying to show you, you know, how simple this is. And I'm pretty impressed with it. So now I'm going to save that. And obviously that's not going to work because we didn't import it. Now the header, I don't want it to be just in the index page. So you can import your components into either a single page, because some things, you know, obviously will be on just individual pages, but this I want to be on every page. So I'm going to bring it into the layout. So let's come up here and let's say import header, and we want to bring that in from .. /components/ header, and don't forget .astro. All right, and then down here, let's see, we're going to put this right above the slot, which is our output for our page. So if I save that, there we go. Now the reason it doesn't look right is because we don't have any of the styling. Now the styling, if we go to the global style sheet here and the theme, I'm just going to grab the header styling. I commented everything nice and neat so we can just grab it and we're going to put it into the component so that everything is encapsulated inside of that. So let's grab that, and then in our header component we can come down here and just add in style and paste that in and save, and now we have the header. Okay, the logo isn't going to work just because of how this is right now, but what we can do is just bring in the logo, which is logo.svg. So we can just go up here and let's add in our triple hyphen, and let's import, let's say logo from, and that's going to be /images/ logo.svg. And then what we can do is just on this image tag right here, just change the source to be dynamic and add in the logo variable. And there we go. So now it shows up. Is this, yeah, that was zoomed in a little bit. All right, so we have our logo, we have our navigation. Now, ultimately, the navigation is going to be, so about, for instance, you could leave the HTML. When we create a page like the about page, you can do about.html, or you can do without it, which is what I want. I'm going to get rid of that. So index is just going to be /, and then for blog, that will just be /blog. And obviously these two aren't going to work right now, but we'll get to those in a little bit. And then the logo, we have a link around that, which we'll just have go to the home page. Now, the header component's pretty simple, so we can just leave it like that. The next thing I want to do is the showcase component, which is this right here. Now, before we do that with Astro, with an Astro component, I want to show you how you could use another framework if you wanted to for your components. So let's go to, I'm just going to search for Astro integrations, and let's see. So we have Tailwind. Wait, is this the page I want? Let me just make this bigger. No, I want to go to the docs, and then let's see, where is it? Right here, integrations. All right, so these are the official integrations. There's UI frameworks. We have React, we have Solid.js, Vue, Svelte, Preact, and Lit, and then you have SSR adapters, and then others as well. So let's say that you want to use React. So we'll click on that. Basically, there's two ways you can do this. You can run just a single command, and it will automatically install the dependencies that you need and set up the config file, or you could do it yourself. So for instance, if we want to use npm, we can just say npm run astro add react, and that will again install the dependencies and set up the config. So let's try that. So I'm going to come over here and let's stop the server for a second, and we'll do npm run astro, and we want to do add, and I'm going to do React. Of course, you could use any framework you want. Okay, so it's going to just ask us to continue. Yes, do we want to? So what it's going to do is it's going to install React and React DOM, of course, and then it has the integration, which is Astro.js /React. So we want to say yes. And you could run npm install those yourself if you wanted to. So now let's run the dev server. And we're not going to see any change or anything like that. But if we come over to package.json, now you'll notice we have 3 new dependencies. We have the Astro React, React, and React DOM. And then where it gets added is in the astro.config. We bring in the integration, and then we add it to this define config. So this function here takes in an object with an integrations array, and you can pass in React as a function. Okay, now if you wanted to use Vue.js, you would install the dependencies, then you would bring it in here, and you could add it here. Like you could just go like that, and then you could use React and Vue in the same project. I don't know why you do that. I definitely wouldn't recommend it, but you could do that if you wanted to. So now that we have that set up, let's create our showcase component, and ultimately this is going to we're going to make this an Astro component. But just to give you an example, let's say new file in components, and let's say showcase.jsx. Okay, and then in here we'll do, let's create a React component, and I'm just going to have a div with the text of showcase. So this is a React component. Now if we come into let's go to our index page, because that's where ultimately I want to put this, and we'll say import showcase from, and let's go up one level into components and then /showcase, but we're going to do showcase JSX. Okay, and then we'll come down here and let's go above the H1 and let's add in the showcase component, and there we go. So it's outputting showcase. So now I'm using React. Now if I wanted to use, like, let's say the useState hook, I could do that. I could say import useState from React, and let's go up here and let's say we'll say const, and if you don't know React, don't worry about it, you just skip this part, but let's say name, set that to, we'll say Brad, and then we should be able to, down here we'll say hello, and we should be able to access that name, and if I save that we get hello Brad. All right, so I'm not going to use React, but I just wanted to show you how easy it is to use another framework with Astro. So what I'm going to do is actually rename this from showcase JSX to showcase Astro, and for now I'll just put in an H1, and then of course in the index page we have to change this to Astro. And then I'm also going to go into the config, and since I'm not using React, I'm going to delete the import, and I believe we can just delete this whole object here because I don't want to keep that, and I'll uninstall the 3 dependencies later. All right, so now let's work on the showcase. So the showcase is going to be this right here, and I wanted to take in the title as a prop, this right here, and then, or the heading I guess, and then also the text, so that we can use this in other places like the blog, like this right here. And then the extra stuff down here, like the image, I'll probably just have a Boolean to enable that or not. And you can try different things if you want, but let's go ahead and get started with that. So showcase, I'm going to grab, let's bring over Sublime Text here, and we want to grab a couple things. So in the index page, I'm going to grab the showcase section. I used an HTML section tag, and we'll grab that and put that here. And then we want the style as well. So for that, grab the showcase class and then all this stuff here as well. Okay, and then we'll put that right in here. Let's save it. Now the image, we need to bring those in. You'll see that the reason I have 2 is because one is for small screens, so like that, and then if it gets bigger, then it shows more frameworks or whatever. So let's import those up at the top. Oops. Why didn't that autocomplete? Okay, so let's import logos, and that's going to be from / images / and then we want, it's called framework logos.png, and then I'm going to copy that down, and this one is called logos small, and we're going to give this a variable of logos small. Okay, and then what we'll do is replace this right here, this source, with logos, and then we'll replace this one with logos small, and let's check that out. Okay, good. If I make that bigger, because remember we have that media query in the global CSS that will load the small one on small screens. Now, as far as the content here, this heading and this text, I want this to be props. So let's go up top and let's say export. I'm going to create an interface for this. So let's say export interface props. We're going to have a heading, which is going to be a string. And let's do a text area, which is going to also be a string. And yeah, I guess we'll just do that for now. And then to get the props, once they're passed in, we're going to destructure, let's say const heading and text, and we want to get that from astro.props as props. Now, there's a few ways we could handle this. We could pass these in for this showcase, but since this is like the main one, I think what I'm going to do is have this as the default text. So what we could do, or the default prop, so what we could do is copy that and replace it with heading, and then we could make heading optional. So we'll make both of these optional because we're going to add them as default. So we'll say heading equals and paste that in. And then for text, we'll say text equals, and let's grab this right here. Let's make sure that these are on the same lines. All right, so then we'll go ahead and grab that, and we'll replace that with text. And let's put that right here, save it, and we should get the same result. However, if I go and I add in heading and I set that to something else, then that's going to change. All right, but those are going to be the default values. Okay, now let's see. As far as this stuff here, since I want to reuse this showcase component, I want to use it on the blog, which, whoops, let me show you right here. So I want to use it on the blog, which just has the heading and the text. So what I'm going to do is create another prop called show extra. And that's going to be optional, and it's going to be a Boolean. And then let's come down here and put a comma and say for show extra, that's going to be set to false by default. All right, and then down where we have the rest of the content, so we have the text, the heading, the text, and then this div right here with showcase image. What I'm going to do is above that, I'll say show extra. If that's true, then we'll have a fragment here. Whoops. We'll have a fragment, and inside that is going to be the rest of this. So it's going to be this div and this paragraph. So we'll grab that, put it in there, save, and that stuff isn't going to be shown. It's just the images and this little message here aren't going to be shown. However, if I go here and I say show extra, and we'll set that to true. And now that's going to show. All right, now the next section we want to do are these cards right here. So what I'm going to do is have a component called features, which is going to be this whole thing. And then each one of these will be a card component. So let's do that. Let's go into components. Let's create a new file here called features.astro. Now, if we look at the theme, where we're looking at this section right here with the class of features, it has a container, and then it just has 3 cards in it, which ultimately we want these to be their own component. But let's copy this whole section just for right now and paste that in there. And then, I mean, there's a few ways we could do this. We could just have like 3 separate components like this, and then pass in a title and a body to each one, you know, this content here. Or we can just create an array of objects with the title and body up at the top so that we can create a list and output a card for each one, which is what I would recommend doing. Because, I mean, you could get this data from anywhere. You could fetch it from some API or CMS or whatever. But let's go ahead and just add in our hyphens, and let's say const, and we'll just say features data, set that to an array of, actually I'm just going to grab the objects. So basically we just have 3 objects, each one has a title and a body, and it's this same content here. So now we can get rid of these 3 divs with the class of card. So that one ends right there, so we'll get rid of those, and then we should be able to just take the features data and map, and let's say for each feature we want actually, yeah, let's do that, but let's do a class of card. Okay, so now for each feature, it's just outputting this div here. So we'll go ahead and save that, and let's add it to our index. So we're going to want to import features from features Astro, and then I'm going to put that right below the showcase. So features, and there we go. Now there's no styling because we haven't added that CSS yet, and each card is going to be its own component. So let's actually do that real quick before we add the styling. So in components, let's create a card.astro, and we'll go ahead and just grab that, and in card we'll paste that in. Now what we're going to want to put in here are props that are passed in, and we're going to start with it this way where we pass in a title and body, but then I'm going to show you a different way that we can do it and implement cards. So for now, let's say export interface props, and we're going to have a title, which is going to be a string. We're going to have a body string. Just do that for now, and then whoops, we need our hyphens. Let's do 1 2 3 and down here. Okay, and then let's destructure and take the title and the body from astro.props as props, and then down here we can get rid of this and this. Okay, so I'm going to save this and now bring that into features. So up at the top here, let's say import card from, and we're in the same folder, so just /card.astro, and then instead of having a div here, what we're going to do is get rid of that and say oops, should be uppercase C, and we're going to pass in the title and the body. Let's save it, and we get the same result. Okay, so now we have our card component for each one of these. As far as the styling goes, I'm going to grab, let's go to this main style sheet here, and you can see we have this for the features, and we're going to grab that. That's going to go in the features component, because we want everything to be encapsulated so that you have your components nice and neat with the output, any logic, any styling. It should all be in the component. All right, so that's that, and you can see now these are horizontal, but we do have a media query so that they stack on smaller screens. So down here, yeah, right here. So I'll just grab this whole media query, and then we'll put that right here, but let's get rid of this footer thing in the header because we only need this. And what this is doing is just stacking, making it one column if the screen is less than 500. Now for the card styling, I don't think there's much. Let's see. Yeah, there's just this this card class right here, so we're going to grab that, and let's put that in the card component. And then whenever you want to use this card, you can just use it on anywhere you want. All right, so now this looks pretty good. Okay, it's horizontal on larger screens. Now let's also give the card the option to be dark, to change the color, just to make it more customizable. So what we can do is add another prop up here. Let's say dark, and let's make that optional. It's a Boolean. And then we'll do right here, we'll say dark, but let's make it false by default. All right, and then we can have a conditional styling or conditional classes, which I haven't showed you yet. But what we could do is make this an expression, put some backticks in here. We always wanted to have the class card, but then we can use our template literal syntax and say if dark. If that's true, then we also want to add the class of dark, which I don't think I have. Do we have that? No. So let's just add that down here. We'll say dark, and we'll do background. And we have access to all our global variables as well in the global CSS. So I have a variable in there called color-primary, which is like that dark blue. So we'll do that, and then the color of the text will be white. Okay, so now if I come back to features where I embed the card component and I add a dark attribute here or prop, and I set that to true. Let's see. No, that didn't work. Oh, there we go. I just had to reload it. So now you can see that these are dark. And if I wanted to, I could just do 3 cards and make like the middle one dark if I wanted to, but since I'm doing it this way, they're all going to turn dark. But I'm going to get rid of that. I just want the option to do that. That's what's nice about building interfaces in this way, is the customizable components. So now let's close up features and cards. We can close up layout as well. And we want to put the rest of the page content in here. So I'm going to bring over the index.html, and you can see under the features that we just did, there's a section with the class of page content, has a container, and then just some H2, H3 paragraphs. But we also have this tabs. So this tabs is dynamic. Let me just show you this thing right here. So we click on one of these tabs, and it shows us the command for that method. Now that JavaScript is right here in this script.js. Basically, we're just selecting all the classes of tabs, we're looping through, and then we're calling this create tabs function for each one, which gives it that functionality. So what I want to do is have a tabs component with this JavaScript inside of it, and I want to be able to basically pass in props for the headings and the body here. Okay, so that we have a customizable, reusable tab component. So for now, or to begin with, let's go to our index.html and just grab that page content section, because that's what it is. It's the page content, so we're going to put that right into the page. So right here, replace this H1. Okay, but the tabs is going to be a separate component, so what I'll do is take that div right there and cut that, and then create a new component called tabs.astro. And for now, we'll just paste that in and save it, and we'll get back to that. All right. So yeah, we'll get back to the tabs, but let's save that. And if we come down here, you can see it's not really styled because we have this class of page content CSS that we have to add. So back in style CSS, let's grab this right here. Now this page content class, I want to have that on every page, so I'm going to actually put that in the global CSS. So we'll put that right above the media queries here, save that, and now this is styled. Now let's bring the tabs component in, even though right now it's just the HTML, but we'll still bring it in so we can see what we're doing. So let's say component/tabs, and we're going to put that right here. We can get rid of this comment. Okay, so I save that, and it's going to look really crappy right now because we don't have any styling. So let me bring over our CSS, and we just have this right here that we can add to the style in the component. Okay, so we'll go tabs and style, paste that in. Let's just tab it over. Okay, if I save. Okay, so it's going to show us all the commands because right now there's no JavaScript connected to this, right? So it's not like showing a highlight, it's just HTML and CSS. So what we can do is grab, let's grab the JavaScript that's in the script.js. So we can just take this whole thing, and in the tabs.astro file, we can actually add a script tag. Let's see, should we put this? Yeah, we'll just put it at the bottom, I guess. So let's say script, and then we can paste this in, and we can use we can use vanilla JavaScript. Just clean that up a little bit. So now if I save that, you can see now it only shows one command. We have the highlight, and now it works. Okay, which is really cool because you can't really do that with like a React component. You can't just throw vanilla JavaScript in and have it work like that. Now, another thing we can do is this script tag, we can actually pass in variables to this. So for this color here, this purple color, I want to have that up here. We'll define a variable for that color, and you could even pass it in as a prop. I didn't think of that before, but you could do that as well. Yeah, we'll make it a prop. So let's say const active color. Okay, so right now I'm just going to put it into a variable, and the color is this right here, right? So this A741FF hexadecimal. I'm going to grab that, put that in there. And now I want to use this variable in the script tag. So what we can do is in script, we can say define vars, and I can pass in here. We're going to use double curly braces here, and then we can pass in our variable of active text color. Is that what I called it? No, we'll say active text color. Okay, so I passed that in. Now I should be able to use this within my script tag. So down here, let's replace this with active text color. Save that. Okay, so we can see it's still purple. Now if I were to come up here and change that to, let's say, red and save, now it's red. So I think that's pretty damn cool. Now let's take it a step further and make that a prop. So let's say export interface props, and we're going to add, we'll say active text color, and that's going to be a string. Okay, and then down here let's do const active text color, and we're going to set that to the default of this. And then we can actually get rid of that. Okay, and we want to get this from astro.props as props. So if I save that, there we go. And now I should be able to come over here. Actually, let's make that optional. So we're just going to add a question mark there. Let's come over here and let's say active text color, and we'll say blue. And there we go. So yeah, I mean, this is the modern way of building interfaces rather than doing, where'd it go? Where'd my Sublime text go? I have so much stuff open. So rather than doing it like this, you know, these monolithic HTML and CSS and JavaScript files. So yeah, let's get rid of that. We don't need to pass anything in. And we can also make the content props as well. So maybe you want to have other tabs around the site, other components like this. with different headings and different content. So what we could do is in our tabs, let's add, let's say headings, and that's going to be an array of strings, and then let's do contents, which will be an array of strings, and then come down here, we'll say headings, contents, and then what we could do is instead of just having these LIs, we can map through. We don't even need this default tab class. Let's see if I get rid of that. It's still npm. But what we can do is now take the headings and let's say .map, and we'll say for each heading we want, for each heading we want an li. Whoops, we don't need an a tag. Let's get rid of that. And we don't need this. So just a list item with the headings. Wait a minute, what's going on here? This shouldn't be here. There we go. All right, so mapping through the headings, we're going to put each one in a list item, and then we're also going to pass in contents, which is going to be this here. So let's get rid of these LIs. And yeah, we're going to do the same thing. So contents.map, for each one we're going to have a list item, but we do want to add the class of tab onto each one. All right, so if I save that, that's going to break because we didn't pass anything in to into this as headings and content. So that's what we want to do right here. So for headings, let's pass in an array of strings. We'll say npm pnpm yarn. Okay, and then we also want to pass in contents, and for that is going to also be an array. So the first one we'll do, it's going to be the command, so money sign, and then npm create, what is it, create Astro at latest. So that'll be the first one. Next one will be money sign pnpm, and then create Astro at latest, and then we have the yarn, so that's going to be yarn create Astro. All right, so let's save that, and there we go. And if we wanted to change one of these headings, like the first one here, if we wanted to change that to hello and save, now that's changed. Okay, if I wanted to change the content of the first one, there we go. So I could create as many of these tab components around my website as I wanted to, just by doing this. So yeah, that takes care of that. I think that's all I wanted to do as far as the tabs go. And we're pretty much done with the home page. We just have the footer now, which is very simple. So basically have the links on the right, just some text on the left. Small screens will get rid of the links. Okay, so let's add a new component for the footer. I keep wanting to do .jsx. So footer, let's grab the HTML, which is this right here. Okay, and then let's put that right in there, and then we'll grab the CSS as well. So let's see, this, we want all these, and I think we have some footer stuff, yeah, right down here. I'm just going to grab from there down, from the footer down, and copy that, and then in here, let's say style, paste that in, and we don't need this 960 media query. We don't need that in here, and then in this one, we just need the footer part. Okay. Yeah, so that should do it. Actually, let's just fix this. All right, so I'm going to save that, and now the footer I'm going to bring into layout. I'm not going to bring it into index. I want it on every page. So that's going to be a layout component. So let's say import footer. Okay, and then we'll put that right under the slot and save. And there we go. So now we have our footer. Actually, let me see what the links. Yeah, we just want to change these. So this will be /about. This will be /blog. Good. So yeah, that's the home page. Just look at it on bigger screen. I think that looks pretty good. So the next task is the about page, which is going to look like this. So pretty simple. Just basically some text along with a card component. All right, so now remember, to create a new page, all we have to do is create a new component in the pages folder. So let's create, let's say about.astro, right? And if I just say about, I should be able to now go to /about, and I can see about. Now I want to use the layout. So what we would do here is just import layout. Actually, we need to add our hyphens. That's something I forget quite a bit. So let's say import layout from /layout/layout.astro. Okay, and then let's just come down here. We'll say layout, and remember we can pass in a title, so we'll say about Astro, and just put a paragraph in there. Now there we go. So we now have our layout. As for the HTML, let's grab that from the theme. So if we go to about HTML, and we just remember we have this section of page content that's going to be on every page. So we'll just take all that. We don't need to get the footer or anything above here because that's already in the layout. But we'll grab that, we'll paste that in. Okay, and then I'll save that. Okay, now we do have an image. Where's the image? Right here. We need these deploy images. So let's go ahead and bring those in. So let's see. We're gonna import logos from, and then this is going to be in images /deploy-logos.png, and then we'll copy that down. We also want the small version, and let's replace this logos, and then we want to replace this with logos small, and save. Okay, there we go. All right, now I want to add a card. You can see this div right here has a class of card. So I want this to be a card component. Now we could continue doing it so the card takes in a title and a body, but what if we want to have something else in here? You know, what if we want to have an image or something, just anything else? I think that what I want to do is, instead of passing in title and body, I think instead I'd just rather wrap this in a card class, you know, and have the dark option as well. So let's actually do that. So instead of taking in a title and body, so we won't even have these props. I mean, it's up to you. It's up to you on how you want to do this. But instead of doing that, what we'll do is have the class of card and the conditional dark class. And then in here, we'll just have a slot. So basically, the slot is just whatever you surround, just like we did with the layout. All right, so now if I come over to the About page and I bring in, let's say, import card from component/card, and then I should be able to do this. Let's save, and there we go. And if I want to pass in dark, I can set that to true, and I could do that as well. Actually, that doesn't look bad. Yeah, we could keep that like that. Now we have to change on the home page. Right now this is going to break because we're still passing in those props. So let's go to index and go to I'm sorry, not index, it's in the features component. And let's see, we did that. So I mean, really all we have to do is, instead of passing these in, is surround them. So we would go like that, and then we'd pass in like that, because that would be the slot. So if I save now, that it's back to how it looked. So it's really up to you. If your cards are always only going to have a heading and a title and body, then it's fine to leave it how it was. Or you could add other props, maybe a link or something like that. So it's up to you. So now we want to add our blog functionality. So we can close all this up. And basically what I want to do is have a Markdown blog. So we'll have a folder where we can have all of our posts, and we'll have it automatically show the post like this on the blog page, and then have a link that goes to the single post. So that's what I want to do. Now, before we do the Markdown thing, I want to show you how we could actually fetch them from an API. And we actually already did this with the JSON placeholder. In fact, that's what I'm going to use, but I'll show you that way as well. So if you had some kind of headless CMS and you had an API you want to hit to get your posts. But let's go to Pages, and let's create a new file called blog.astro. And we want to use our layout, so let's make sure that we import. So we need to add. All right, so we're going to import layout from layout.astro, not components, layouts. And then down here we'll say layout, and we'll give it a title of, what did I say for about? Did I say Astro blog? No, I said about Astro. All right, for some reason I thought I put blog there. So we'll say Astro blog. And if I save that, that should be enough for this to work if I click on blog. Okay, so now we have our layout. So as far as the HTML is actually very simple. If we look at blog HTML, we just have the page content section, container, and then we have a bunch of cards with the posts. So we don't even have to copy that. We can just go ahead and type that in here. So we have a section with page content, and then we have a container. Could have put container on the section, but whatever. All right, now as far as getting posts, like I said, we're going to use Markdown, but just to show you how easy it would be to get from an API, we could just say response equals, remember we have that top level async, so we can just use await, and that's not the URL that I want. Let's do JSON placeholder, but I want to get posts, and we'll do, let's say, underscore limit of 5. And then we could do const posts and set that to the response JSON. And we're going to use cards, so we would bring that component in. So import card. And then down here, what we would do is map through the posts. So post.map, and say for each post we want a card. Let's say card, and we want to pass in, actually we're not passing in anything anymore because we have a slot. So in here we'll put the yeah, H3 in paragraph with the post title and body. If I save that, there we go. Now, as far as Markdown goes, what I want to be able to do is have a folder in the source folder called posts. So let's create that. So posts, I mean, you can call it whatever you want, articles, posts, whatever. And then let's see, what did I have for files? The name of the file is going to be, or should be, your title, basically like a slug. I mean, it doesn't have to be because we will have a slug field in the front matter, but I'm just going to say like this first one I want it to be called Astro 1.0. So I'll do for the title or the file name, I'll do Astro-1-0 and then .md because it's a Markdown file. Now, as far as Markdown goes, it's pretty simple. Markdown. I have a Markdown crash course. As far as fields, you're going to want to put that in the front matter. So the front matter you can kind of think of as like database fields. If you had blog posts in a database, you would have things like a title, a slug, an excerpt, a date, things like that. So that's what we put in the front matter, and that's set up just like our components with the triple hyphen. Okay, and these are not this is separate from Astro. This is Markdown. So this is where we put our front matter. So I'm going to put the title of the article in here. Actually, we don't need to do it as a string. It's just like this. All right, so that's the title. Then we'll do a slug, and the slug is just going to be a URL version of the title. And then excerpt, I'm just going to grab that. I just have some lorem ipsum I'm putting in here. Okay, and then we'll do, let's say, date. So for the date, I'm going to do 2022 0513, and then we'll put an author, John Doe. So that's the front matter. Now the content, the body of the blog post is going to go down here, and I'm just going to paste in a bunch of lorem ipsum. Okay, so that's our first post. We're not going to see anything, obviously, because we haven't added that functionality, but I want to create 2 more posts before we do that. So I'm just going to copy everything in here, and then let's create another post, and I'm going to call this one Astro-1-0-release-update.md. Okay, and then we'll paste that in, and let's just change the title here to release update, and then the slug as well. And I don't know, we can change the author, and we can change the date to something else. All right, and then we'll create one more. So post, let's create one more. We'll call it Astro. What is this one? Astro on dash Netlify dash edge dash functions function.md. All right, and then we'll do the same thing, paste that in. Netlify edge functions. Okay, and we'll change that. All right, so now we have three Markdown posts. Now, for those of you that took my Next.js course, or you watched my Next.js video where we created a blog with Markdown, the amount of code that we had to write then compared to what we can do here with Astro is crazy. They make this really easy. So, and I'm talking about to get the post and to create the links to go to a single page. But to get the post, all we have to do, we can get rid of this response because we're not dealing with an API anymore. So we can get rid of that, and then we can, instead of awaiting response, we can simply do await, and then astro.glob, G-L-O-B, and then in here we simply put the location of the folder, which to us is going to be up one level, and then posts, and then we're just going to do /*, so basically anything, and then .md, so any Markdown files. So we're fetching those. All right, now the only other change we have to make is once we get these posts using this, the title, the excerpt, which is also what I want to show here, those are in the front matter, and that's going to be an object. So instead of post.title, we can do front matter. So front matter.title. Okay, and then I also want to put the excerpt here. So we'll say front matter.excerpt. All right, I'm going to save that, and there we go. So it's as easy as that. So now anytime I add a new post to this folder, it's just going to show here automatically. Now, it's that versus having a site like this with all separate HTML files and having to create a new HTML file every time, having to go into your blog HTML and manually add a new card. You know, it's much easier and much more modern. So one thing I did forget is the showcase at the top. I do want to use the showcase component, so I'm going to bring that in. So import showcase from components, showcase, and let's go right above the section here. So showcase, and we want to pass in here, it takes in a heading. So we'll say Astro blog, and also text. So we'll say a simple blog built with Astro. There we go, simple. And then, of course, I want to have the link that goes to the single blog post. Now that is actually going to be the slug, okay? Because we have this right here. So we want to be able to go to whatever our domain is, in this case, localhost 3000 / astro10, and that should bring us to the page. And that's actually pretty easy to do. But before we do that, let's add the link. So we're going to do an a tag, and let's say href. Actually, that's going to be dynamic. And let's say read more. And let's give this a class of btn, which is a global class. Okay. Now, as far as the link, in here we're going to put some backticks because we do want to have a /, and then our template literal, where we can do post.frontMatter, and we want the slug. All right, so if I save that, the link isn't going to go anywhere right now if I click it, but we should see right here Astro, so it's going to be whatever the slug is. All right, now to do that, this is going to be very similar to what we do with Next.js and Nuxt.js, if you're familiar with those. So in pages, we can create a new page. We're going to use brackets, and then whatever the field the URL is connected to. It could be an ID, but for us it's going to be slug. So we're going to say brackets slug.astro. Now, if you've ever used Next.js to create a static site and you had either a blog post or some kind of resource where you needed to create paths, you use this function called getStaticPaths, and we do the same thing in Astro. So we're going to create our script up here, our hyphens, and then we want to export an async function called getStaticPaths. And Copilot's probably going to get, it's giving me a bunch of Next.js stuff, so just ignore that. But let's create a variable here called posts, and we can get posts just like we did here. In fact, I can just copy this. So using astro.glob and then passing in the location of your posts. Then we want to return from this an array of objects that has a params object in it with the field that we want to use for the URLs or the paths, which in our case is a slug. So let's say return, and then with that post array, we're going to map through it and say for each post, we want to return an object, so parentheses with curly braces, and that should have a params object with the name of the field. For us is going to be slug, and we get that with post.frontmatter.slug. Okay, and then we also want to put a comma right here and then just have props with an object, and we can just put in post here. Okay, so now we'll be able to get our post content and front matter through props. So we can actually go right under the getStaticPaths and say const, and we can destructure from astro.props.post. And we should be able to get the content. So we can do that with uppercase C, content, and then we also have access to the front matter. And I want that because we need the title. Okay, so next thing, we want to obviously output this, and we want to use our layout. So I'm going to come up here and import the layout from layout/layout.astro. Oops, this should be ... and then I'm also going to import a card from ... components card. Okay, and then let's come down here to the output, and let's do our layout. And then for the title, I'm actually going to pass in the front matter.title, and just for now we'll just say hello. So the path, when I click on these read more buttons, it should work because of this. So if I click that, there we go, we just get hello, but you can see that these paths are now working, and we should have access to this stuff right here. Now I do want to have in the layout, we're going to have our section of page content, and then our container, and then in here we're going to wrap everything in a card. Okay, and we're going to have a link to go back. So let's have that go to just slash, and we'll say go back. Actually, let's give it a class of btn. Okay, and then underneath that we want our title. I'm going to put that in H2, and we can just do front matter.title, and then underneath that let's put in our content. We can do that just like that. That'll put our markdown content. All right, so pretty cool, pretty easy. Actually, I want this back button to go to /blog. Okay, so if I click on this article, it takes me to that one, takes me to that one. So it's pretty easy to set up, and now it's really easy to go ahead and just add posts and create whatever fields you want. In fact, we have the fields, we might as well add them. So on the slug page, we can go right under the H2, and let's put we'll put a div here, and let's say written by, actually, yeah, we'll do that. So written by Jane Doe on, now this date, we can format this. We can have regular JavaScript in here. So let's say new date, and wrap this front matter date. And to make this look even better, we can do to locale date string. And maybe we want to make that strong. Or we'll make, we'll make the author name strong. Good. And we can put the same thing on this page as well. If we go to blog, let's go right below the title, Oh, we need to do post dot front matter here. Post. Cool. So that's going to do it for the website. Now, to deploy this, you of course want to turn this into a static website, and you do that. Let's just stop the server here. You do that with npm run build, and what that'll do is it'll create a dist folder, as you can see right here, and then we have all of our static files in here. We have our about file, we have our individual blog posts as HTML files, our blog page, and then the index HTML. Now, if we look at this index HTML, you can see that the only JavaScript we have in here is my tabs component. Nothing else. If we go down to the bottom here, there's no other script tags. So that's what's really cool about Astro. And that's what they mean by the island architecture, is you have all this water, all this HTML with your JavaScript islands. All right, now to host this is really easy because it's just a static website, so you can really host it anywhere. Netlify makes it really easy because you can just deploy your entire project to GitHub and then push it to Netlify, and then Netlify will host the dist folder. So let's actually do that. First thing you want to do is create a GitHub repo. So I'm going to go to GitHub. I'll just do this later. And then let's go ahead and say new repository. And I'm going to call this Astro-website. And I'll just call it Astro Crash Course Website. And I'm going to make it private for now. I'll make it public later on for you guys. So create repo. All right, then we're going to grab the remote. I'm sure you guys know how to do this. So we should already have a Git project. So if I just do git status, we should see everything that's not committed. And then we'll do, let's say, git add all and git commit. And just say initial commit. Okay, now I'm going to paste in that remote link, and then you're just going to want to create your main branch and then push to GitHub. Permission deny. I hate when it does this. Hold on, guys. SSH add .ssh/id _RSA _GitHub. All right. So now let's come over here and reload. And there we go. So now it's on GitHub. I'm going to change. This is the standard Astro README. I'm going to change that. I'm also going to add the theme to this repo as well. But I just want to show you now, if we go to Netlify, and I'm just going to log in. Okay, so once you log in, you'll see a dashboard like this, and then you can just say add new site, import. I'm importing from GitHub. It's going to authorize. And then you're going to want to find your repo. Okay, so it's right here. Now you just want to make sure that your build command is npm run build, and it will be by default, or it should be, and your dist folder is your published directory. So that's what it's going to deploy, is that dist folder. We're not actually pushing this dist folder onto our repo. In fact, that's in the git ignore. As you can see here, that doesn't get pushed. What happens is it builds it on Netlify. All right, so now we should be ready to deploy. And now this might just take a minute or two. Okay, so I just reloaded, and now we should be all set. I have my domain here, and of course you could use your own domain. And there we go. Let's check this. So that's working. Let's go to the About page. So there's our About page. Let's go to our blog page. Okay, so we have all of our Markdown files here. If I click on the button, brings us to the actual post, and you can see that the path is working. So it's as easy as that. Now, if I want to add a new blog post, I simply add a new Markdown file, push to GitHub, and that's it. Netlify will automatically add that deploy. All right, so you don't have to do anything except create the new blog post. So it's a pretty easy, simple workflow. And obviously, you're probably not going to use this method for like a huge blog with 50, 60 authors. But something like a personal blog, I think that this is a great stack, great platform. But that's it, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and I will see you next time.